everyone, it's my second video on the channel, and today we're going to be discussing the fallacy of democracy. So, if you live in the West, or if you just live pretty much anywhere nowadays, you will probably be exposed to a lot of pro-democratic talking points. The idea that we should all be able to, have a say in who's chosen to run the country, whatever country you may live in. And people generally have a bias towards more democratic systems. And it's easy to see why, because it's a system which appears to allow everyone to have a equal say in what happens, to have an equal say in decisions made and who runs the country. And so it appears to be fair. And I think humans have a natural want for fairness and equality. So I definitely see why that there is a bias towards it. That's not exactly hard to figure out why. But the issue comes when we aren't open to considering other forms of rulership. Typically, when you speak out against maybe the implementation of democracy in society, people instantly think of dictatorship, where one person, or at least a few elites, run everything and they have absolute power and no one can question them. Or they think of a monarchy where a hereditary family rules everything. And that's typically the result you have when you aren't in a democracy, typically. But that doesn't have to be the case always. Does not always have to be the case. I do think that there are alternatives to both, which would provide a more equal and fair life for everyone. And today I would like to express some of those ideas. These are my personal own ideas that I came up with, so I didn't get them from anywhere else. But before I get into that, I would like to go deeper on as to why democracy is actually an issue and why it isn't as moral and as good as people like to proclaim it to be. Number one is that humans are tribal. Humans are naturally tribalistic. It's not something you can remove out of humans. Only thing you can do is change what humans are tribal about, right? So people may be tribal about race, about this political affiliation, maybe tribal about maybe where they're from as far as like the city or state. People are just tribal. They like to argue. And so when you have a democracy, and democracy encourages the formation of political parties, and these political parties gain power within the socio-political and economical spheres of society, what you have is two powerful forces pulling and tearing at the very fabric of society, pulling it apart. This is what we can see here in America. Anytime a Republican does something bad, they can just blame it on the Democrats, and vice versa. Anytime a Democrat does something bad, they can just blame it on the Republicans. And so what you have now is a system of guaranteed stagnation where basically really nothing gets done. Nothing gets done. And every 4 years you vote in some new idiot who's to do the same thing and just blame the opposite party. Oh, it was their Democrats' fault. Oh, it was the Republicans' fault. Whose fault was it? Typically, it was both of theirs fault. It was both sides' fault. But the average person is so tribal and stupid. They don't really get it. They're not able to comprehend that the allowance of these two mega parties to just constantly deflect blame is the reason why we're not getting anywhere. It's the reason why there's constant issues that we've been asking forever. When are these things going to change? Well, they're not going to change because you have two massive parties, and typically they're funded by the same people anyway. So it's not like these parties are like real and they have any sort of like ideological commitment to anything or anybody. Well, they do. They do have some sort of commitment, but only to people who fund them. But to like an actual idea or something, they don't care. It's like the Republicans were always, supposedly the party of family values. They cared about strong family units and family matters. But when Elon Musk, right, a guy who's had like 12 kids with like 4 different women. I heard it's more kids. I heard it might be with even more women, right? When he's out here creating broken homes and creating baby mamas, essentially, so many Republicans came out in defense of Elon. And the reason why is because He was buddy buddy with Trump at that time. So many. If I'm not mistaken, Charlie Kirk was one of them. You can always rely on Charlie Kirk to defend the most stupid stuff. So that's no surprise. But that's my point. There is no real ideological commitment in a system of democracy. Everything is just about winning. That's it. Just win. Just win. And so I would like to expand upon that point I just made, where the only people they really have loyalty to is the people who send them money. And so the second biggest issue with democracy would be the fact that campaigns are expensive. And most politicians don't have the money to spend on their own campaigns, to finance their own campaigns. They don't have the money for that, even if they are rich. Campaigns are very expensive. And even if they do have the money, who wants to spend their own money on this? What if you lose? And then you spend all your money and you're not even in a sea of power. You can't even make that money back. And so now what you have is these politicians will essentially become slaves to whoever gave them the most amount of money during their campaign process. And even after the campaign process, when they're in power, there's still a system of donations that can be given to them freely by these parties, which is bad because it creates corruption. You're basically buying the opinions of these people, and that's not good for obvious reasons. That's why you see things like AIPAC are so powerful, right? AIPAC, where they just shell out however much money to these various different politicians. You can go on AIPAC Tracker, their website, and you can see how much money a lot of Congress members have taken from AIPAC, and most of them have taken some degree of money from AIPAC. Most of them have taken some degree from AIPAC. And so it's really a disgusting and a shameless and evil thing to just allow, constant, just really bribery. That's what it is. It's just bribery. There's no other way to put it. You're just bribing people. You're just, there's no, I don't even know, it's actually crazy because this wasn't always allowed. It wasn't always allowed, but if I'm not mistaken, I think it was, I don't know when it was, but it was sometime during the Cold War where the Supreme Court basically said that no, lobbying is a form of free speech. Corporations deserve a say in politics also. So yeah, we'll allow that from now on, which I will definitely say, if lobbying isn't gotten under control, this will be a major contributor to the fall of Western society. And I'm not even mad about that. I do think the West needs to fall. But I'm just saying, if you're a pro-Western, then I think that it's in your best interest to be anti-lobbying because of the evils it does. You see, the less a nation tolerates bribery in their government, even if they make the wrong decisions, you can at least come to the conclusion that the people who are making those decisions in the government probably actually just believe, right, in the decisions they made. So it establishes a more honest system. Whereas if you allow your politicians and your government officials to become basically just, what's the word? What's the word? You put it's like a pig, like a piggy bank. Thank you. There we go. Like a piggy bank, for donations. Then you can never truly have any sort of honest relationship with them. You can never have that, and that's the issue. That's the issue there. And I would say this is that this point I just made and the first point go hand in hand. They go absolutely hand in hand, because when you mix the tribalism of the human nature with the natural greediness of the human nature, what you get is a political system where people are just fighting for control and funding people who at least they think best aligns with their interests. And what you have is just a system of, okay, well, when I get to the top, I'm only going to empower my people. And this can be from anything. This can be ideological. This can be racial. It can be anything. It can be anything. And so this is not something that we should tolerate. The third reason why democracy is so detrimental is that people are very easy to influence. Um, Democracy is weird because I sometimes wonder, can you have a democracy where the media is strictly controlled by the government? Would that be better? Because the thing is, um, when you allow such free movement of information, it allows for foreign powers to subvert the democratic process. We know that Russia and China, and maybe even other adversarial nations, are involved deeply in American politics. We know this is a fact. Russia constantly runs bot farms where they just say things and they influence people to vote a certain way. And so I wonder, have a truly democratic system, would it be better to allow for, would it be better to have the same amount of free speech we have now, maybe more free speech, or less? Because at least if you have less, the people can't post freely about what they want, then you don't have to worry about people being so easily manipulated out of the position they would have originally had. And I'm not supporting this. This isn't even my belief. I actually do believe in free speech to a certain extent. I think we have too much in America. And I think we're especially too tolerant of hate speech. That's what I think. I know if you say something hateful online, you might get criminalized, but I mean not criminalized, but you will get demonized or you may get canceled. What I really think is that there needs to be some sort of illegality to hate speech. It's not something that we should just allow to run freely in society because it rips at the fabric of society. It rips at the fabric of society. And I think there's some other things we need to be stricter on. But I was wondering though, considering that democracy is so easy to tamper with, would democracy be better if we had a more strict system of media? But since we don't have that, the point I would like to address is that when people go out to vote, it's very rare they're actually voting for opinions that they came to on their own and that they would like to back. Typically, it's a cultural thing. They come from a certain environment, they come from a certain area, and everyone in that area votes that way, and so now they're gonna vote that way, right? It's just it's a hobby, it's a communal activity. Essentially, voting is just it's just like backing a sports team. It's essentially no different from that, unfortunately, for a lot of people. And so the issue is, a lot of people, I would say most people, think that their opinions are more unique than they actually are. Too many people think that they're their own person when they really aren't. They're just programmed. They're just programmed to be a certain way. Like we have a whole insult. We call someone a bot, and that is true on many levels. I think it's kind of overused now, but it is true on many levels. Like, yes, there are some people who are just bots. They aren't really thinking much. And then you ask someone, why are you voting for this person? Why are you voting for this party? Why do you back this party? And they'll give you a reason. But a lot of times it's just reasons that they've heard, once again, in their community. But have they actually gone out and researched it? Most of the times you would find no. And they may say they have, but if they're being honest with you, they haven't. They haven't. They just heard a bunch of people who they think are smarter than them say it. And so therefore they assume it just must be true. It just must be true. And so what I'm saying is that just because a bunch of people vote on something, that doesn't make it true. It doesn't make it true. And a lot of times the masses are wrong on things. And so it's dangerous to have a system which is so predicated upon the feelings and emotions of mass amounts of people. Okay? If you get, I don't know, 5 million votes on something, right, in comparison to someone may get 200,000 votes, then there is a greater chance that the person with 5 million votes is actually correct. I would say that. But that does not necessarily mean that they are correct. Does not necessarily mean they are correct. And especially when you know that there's adversarial nations running disinformation campaigns in your nation, it can be very dangerous to allow people who can have their opinions swayed so easily be allowed to participate in the electoral process. But that's all I have for today. I'm sorry for the background noise and any cuts that may have been in the video. I hope my videos will continue to improve in quality, and thank you for watching.